could run the meeting today. Patty Norman has some commitments that came up, and we all know that Mr. Wagner has started in new employment in Idaho. So new job. So I get the opportunity to welcome everyone here today. Welcome. We're glad to have all of you on for this meeting so that we can move forward. And we also extend a welcome to our guests that are joining us to present today, and to all of the UETN staff and everyone that helps make this go off without a hitch. We sure appreciate the work and the behind the scenes technical support that we have. We're going to go right into it. We're going to start with our guest presenter, Heather Huddleston. Did I say that right? Huddleston?
Yes, you got it.
Okay. We are going to have them present, and they have done and just completed our inventory checklist from the districts and charters. And we're going to turn the time over to that group. I think probably Corey and Heather are going to tag team this maybe a little bit, but we look forward to seeing this full report and being able to look at it.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen here. And I believe you have this presentation also in your board docs. Maybe one quick second. All right. All right. Are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Heather Huddleston. I'm Director of Program Development at Connected Nation. And for many of you, you've heard from us in previous years as we have worked. This is the 5th time that we've had the opportunity to partner with you all to provide the report for this and work hand in hand to do this inventory. So this is a great opportunity for us to deliver back to you the results that are the culmination of many months of work in partnership with Corey and Jeff and Egley and Jim Stewart and the team. And I welcome interruptions and questions and discussion. So please feel free to ask a question at any point. And yes, Corey, of course, please feel free to tag team this with me. So just to start out, for those of you, I think there may be some new faces here today. The methodology behind this is the school and technology inventory, and it takes place every 2 years. This is the 5th time, and we've had the opportunity to participate every time. And once again, we had 100% participation across all district and charter schools, K through 12. And our approach to this project is what you're seeing here. And there are a couple of slides that I'm just going to buzz through because you've got these in your materials. But we take the approach to this project, from a project management standpoint, in the same manner. We've done it the same way so that we get the 100% participation level. But the timeline for the project, it starts many months ago, and there were a lot of stakeholders who participated in this process, who helped refine the inventory and the questions. And that really began in earnest, really pre-phase 1 with refining the development of the questions. And so with each iteration of the inventory, those questions have changed. Obviously technology changes, and we've learned lessons from each of those. And the needs of the report change, but also just as we learn what the needs of the report are, but also what's actually happening in the schools. So we continue to refine it. There's never a perfect report, but we think we're getting better at each time. We then collect who we're going to work with at each of those districts and schools, begin the outreach, open the portal, do all the launch, the data collection, and then leading up to when the portal closes, then we compile and analyze all of that. And today is the culmination of all of those efforts as we present the report to you. And as you see, we have been very fortunate that we've been able to have 100% participation again across all rural and urban districts, charter districts, K through 12 throughout the state. That's, this one slide reflects the work of many people, and not the least of which are all of the, technology and information directors at all the schools who it's really a very heavy lift, I think, in many cases, especially the newcomers to those positions, to collect all of the information that is included in this report. And for those who aren't familiar with the details in this report, it's really a lot of thorough information. So let's get into some of that. I've broken it out here into software solutions. The first, and some of these are just highlights. So you'll see, more thorough results in the full report, which is, I think it's 250 pages this time. So you can see everything that you want to see in the full report, and that's linked in your Word docs also. But the first thing that I wanted to show you here is these are grades pre-K through 6 in terms of data application importance. And this is, looking left to right. The dark red shows those that were identified as critically important applications. And then, the dark blue were identified as not important. The light blue is not used. And so if you look here, Google Apps, no surprise, was the top, of importance for those. And then, the next would be the literacy, and, you can go on down the line. And this is grade 7 through 12 for the same information. And so Google Apps is, more than 2/3 on that. And Canvas is the second in this for these grades. So next, we're looking at top online assessment tools. And an important note on this slide is that none of these are state provided. So, these are what they're choosing to use. So you can look down the line at these.
And one of the things I ought to say is state mandated, probably maybe a better word,
Yeah.
with the end-level test and different things in other systems. So go ahead.
Yep. Thanks, Corey. Yeah. Any questions up to this point? I like to, I'm very happy to have questions at any point. Don't hesitate if you do. All right. So moving right along, student technology access. Looking at student information systems, the percent of districts and charters using each student information systems, as you can tell, Aspire is, far and away the most utilized, with PowerSchool coming in second. So, interesting to see what the split is among all the schools. And then percent of students attending schools that employ student information systems. Directory services used for teacher and student accounts. No surprise here, Google takes the top spot. And then percent of LEAs where at least one school needs instructional software tools. Tools for student products came in at 45%, software for students with special needs, teacher, professional development, software and science, all at 43. And you can, go on down the line. 22% said that we have what we need, which is an interesting statistic. And here we move into the age of wireless equipment. The average age of wireless equipment reported by schools connected with Wi-Fi. So 7% say it's newer than 1 year old. 18% it's 1 or 2 years. 32% 3, and then 25% 4 or more years old. Strategies employed by Utah schools for mobile devices. And so this is where we're looking at that, you know, one-to-one device to student ratio. And 38% are saying that the students may take those devices home. 32% they may not.
I actually thought we'd see a change here, you know, after the pandemic. It bumped up really high through the pandemic. It went from 6% to I think 39%. And then after the pandemic, it stayed at 38% for the take-home devices, which I thought was surprising. I thought that we'd maybe hear or see something different, but it was good news. I think the people are still allowing those devices at home, and at least in my thoughts, my opinion.
Yeah, I wanted to add into that. I was hoping that the stat on the 32% would decrease, that more students were able to take them home. But we don't know all the variables, like what's already being now is in their home and whatnot. So
That's right.
Great thought, Patty, Superintendent Norman.
And now looking at the devices used in the schools, Google Chromebooks, by a long shot. We're at almost 600,000 Google Chromebooks.
Did you happen to query how those devices are managed? Like device management platforms that they use on those?
Hey, Eric, we did have a question on MDM solutions. I do know most of the Chromebooks are managed through the Chrome management tools, but we do have some data collected as well on other MDMs.
I guess the important part being that they are fully MDM'd, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well said.
All right, and this one is on perceptions, available resources, 42%. At 40% of LEAs, the majority of schools believe adequate resources are not provided for teachers to integrate mobile devices into their teaching practice. All right, so now looking at the Wi-Fi networks. Access points per educational space increased slightly from the last inventory. And it's seen a steady increase since 2015. And this looks at how they were installed. %60 used in-house professional.
And we continue to see that increase too, whether it's in-house, professionals doing it, which is great. That's what we want to do, right? We want to build our capacity in the local districts so they can do this themselves.
So if I could add on right here, I find that in line with kind of what we've been trying to do in the state with working with UEN, with the training on Ekahau tools and wireless access and being able to scan and build expertise on how to build a network and how to manage it and putting those tools in place. And, I think Jim and Corey and Troy, they've done an excellent job in helping us build that capacity with our school district personnel.
Jason, thank you for that input. Very cool.
Heather, I
Yeah,
have a
that's what we're
question.
trying to do. That's what we've been trying to do. Yep.
What's on the previous slide, what's considered an educational space?
Try to go back here.
Any place that they're doing instruction. We didn't count like custodial closets, but if a lunchroom, a gymnasium are being used for instruction, they count that.
Mhm.
That's how it's defined.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Corey. All right, Wi-Fi post-installation checks, time since the last post-installation validation survey of the school's Wi-Fi network. Within the last year was almost a quarter. Within the last 2 to 5 years, 43%. And no post-installation survey conducted, 31%. So kind of all over the place on this one. Wi-Fi quality. Number of noticeable Wi-Fi outages per school year and slowdowns is what this slide is showing.
I think it's a great stat, and I think it shows that Wi-Fi, as far as overall, is getting better in our school districts and in our schools.
Portion of the school buildings covered by adequate Wi-Fi. And, 55% said that 100% of the building has adequate Wi-Fi coverage, and 45% say 80 to 99%. So, it's less than 1% that says that less than 80% of the building has adequate Wi-Fi coverage, which is a pretty good stat. All right, mobile learning device deployment scenarios. LEA is offering remote internet access for students. 64%, the LEA does not provide remote access for students. And then 18% it does. And 18% it refers students to solutions or services offered by providers.
Do we have the graph like change over time from last year or like from 2020 maybe?
We can. I don't think that we've got that. I don't think that we've got that developed in the report. I'll have to double check that.
I think one of the problems we have over time is we changed this question a bit. And so we don't have longitudinal data for this particular question. We only started collecting this the last 2 iterations. And so to show it would be not reliable data, because we did change the question, and it's something we can talk about and look at, but really good question, and we can provide you some more details that way. Who was that asked that question? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Patty.
Yeah. Okay. So then
Yeah, sorry. I have to be in and out
that.
today, so I'm trying to, and so I apologize if I interrupted as well. So thank you.
No, not at all. I just didn't see it, but we'll get back with you on that. Great question. Let's think through that just a little bit with you. We are running low on time, so just wanted to. But we'll definitely get back with you on that. So
yeah, I can take that back to our researchers and get something back to you. All right, remote internet services offered to students. Vendor provided hotspots to 43%. And on average, LEAs that provide remote internet access solutions or services say they provide those services to 2% of the students. I keep moving on this one. Why adequate internet service is not available to all students, and the number one answer was affordability. Students without adequate internet access off campus. Schools estimate that on average, 17.8% of their students don't have adequate internet access for real-time remote or off-campus learning. 12% believe all of their students do have sufficient off-campus access. So both ends of the spectrum here. All right, so that wraps up sort of the presentation of the info, and these are just the last two slides show you in the report an example of the school's summary pages. So half of the report really is taken up with these pages that summarize some of the top information that we have for each school. And so here's one for Noah Webster Academy, and I guess gives you kind of basics down the line, shows you over 3 years on, like, for example, age of Wi-Fi access points, mobile deployment, that kind of thing. And then here it is for a district school. So those are just examples for you. And I appreciate
those
it
ones,
very much. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Heather, for
Yeah.
stepping on you. Just to let you know,
problem.
those one-pagers are at the bottom of the full report
Mhm.
that's linked in the board docs. We hope that the report really is clean. It really looks great. We hope that you'll take that report, download it, spend some time with it, and really look at all those one-pagers that are at the bottom. It's really, really insightful, the data that's there. But we're definitely interested in questions, thoughts, or ideas, input from you all. Rick, what are you thinking? Do you want to add some thoughts before we turn the time back?
I found that some things that looking at the data, particularly that the student device count has stayed steady, which I think begins to show the stabilization there, and the districts are now working more on refresh than acquisition, which then leads to you're probably seeing a lot more professional learning on the tools and the resources that they have. They seem to have, they're coalescing around things and being thoughtful about their implementation. I think there's some things that we'll need to dig a little bit deeper into the data. Particularly as Patty mentioned, the number of devices that are going home. I would like to know where those are at and a little bit more background on some of those things. But I think overall that we seem to be trending well, and we remain unique among all the states in the country, that nobody really has this data except us.
Yes, I can
Rick?
chime in on that. That's accurate. I think you all are the first and still only state to be doing this thorough inventory of technology in your schools. So kudos to you.
So we can continue to take questions, but I think we need to wrap this up. We've taken quite a bit of time, but there are a couple things I wanted to jump in and say. One is that we very much appreciate the relationship we have with Connected Nation and all of the work that they've put into this. Also, a big thanks to all of the districts and personnel and everyone at the district level and school level that helped with this. We know it's a heavy lift, and that 100% goal is something that it's very important, and we're very appreciative of all those who helped with this. Another thing I'd say is that this is all data that we have collected, and we have all the raw data. You can go in there, districts can go in there and really dig through this data and query it out and take a lot of different looks. So this one report is not the sum total of what's available. All that data is available. And the last thing I want to say is that although we do change the questions from time to time, our bias is to keep the questions the same. And we really think long and hard before we either add a question or make any changes to the question. We vet that very seriously with our stakeholder base before we make any changes on that, because we realize that there's a lot of value in the longitudinal data. And so we're very reluctant to ever change that. Thank
Patty,
you.
would you like to Patty has her hand up for a question.
Yeah, thank you. I love this report so much. I just have to tell you that I read through it. I absolutely love the data, especially interested in the data over time, how it changes and what that does. It helps us reflect on funding, policy changes that are needed, those types of things. And so I think I could have listened for another hour and just like drawn down into every single one. So I know that you're saying you're short on time, but I really appreciated the deep dive and the fact that this is even done. My question is, in disaggregating this information to different stakeholder groups, it's not embargoed, correct? We don't have this embargoed. We can distribute. Yes.
I think-
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, what's going to happen is this report and all the one pages will be published onto our website. So everything will be there, and the data is available to any of the districts, the LEAs. They can download and use in any way that they would like. Absolutely. It'll be
our
published
intention
probably
is-
next
This may be my follow-up question to that. So maybe the follow-up question is, Spencer, is this something that you're going to be like handing at USSA and then maybe doing an overview? I think that might be a really good idea.
Sure.
With that overview.
Yeah,
A lot
that's
of
a great idea.
a lot of brand new superintendents.
Yeah, I will reach out to Lexi and see if we can get on their agenda.
Patty, we will have this data published. I think, well, it goes after the board meeting. We send it to the web folks, and they will publish it when they get a chance, as soon as they get a chance, I should say. So hopefully in the next week or so.
We had a good deep dive in the Q's region. Corey came and presented this to us, and I think Heather, you were there too, weren't you?
Yes.
And we kind of dived into it, and afterwards we had a little bit of a discussion, my network engineer and I. And one thing that really stood out to us is how important the DT&L funds are from the legislature for supporting refresh rates, looking at new purchases of not only computers or iOS devices, but starting to look at incorporating AI into our schools and into our platforms with Canvas. Rick, you were on there. We had a great discussion. When I look at the APs and the age, I think that data really shows of how well we're using E-rate funds and how the districts are really planning and coordinating to be able to refresh their hardware, their software, everything. And all these funds from the legislature, from the federal government, they all play a role in supporting student learning. And that's what I think this report really, really shows us and helps us with. Rick, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think to echo that sentiment and that I think it's what we're able to actually I really sort of lost my train of thought here, but let me see if I can recapture that quickly. But as we look at this data and the point that I wanted to make is this gives us really not insight, not just into the DTL funding that comes from the state, the $20 million. This is giving us insight into how all the technology dollars that LEAs are using, those dollars that are on there, that they're bringing on their own as well. So it's one of the few things that we have that we can actually really take a picture of what districts are doing above and beyond even those funds that are coming from the legislature, the funds that they're using locally.
Eric, you have a question, your hand up?
Yeah, I love this. In the current environment where cybersecurity and privacy is such a public and legislative discussion, I wonder if at some point it may be worth asking a question and tracking, for example, the number of devices that are managed and securely configured to show over time that 80%, 99%, 100% of student devices are in a known secure configuration, beyond just knowing that we have devices, but that those are protected from a privacy and security perspective, could be a valuable data point over time.
Yeah, great input. Thank you. I'll jot that down.
Are there any other questions that anyone has that they would like to address before we move on? Oh, Rick, I saw your hand pop up. You're muted, Rick. You'll have to.
Always helps on you, doesn't it? One of the other stats that just struck me was this inventory shows the depth and breadth of the size and the size of the UEN network. When you look at the number of devices, we have over 885,000 or 800,000 plus, and I can't remember the exact number there, of student devices that are out there that are on the network. Just again, that's a big number that are and that we're able to provide, and I think it really puts UEN in a great light in showing how they're able to provide very adequate connectivity to those over 800,000 devices. That's just the K-12 side. You probably double the size of that. It's a good way of being able to look at the size, the depth, and the breadth of the projects that we're working on.
Well, I'd like to tell Heather, thank you for joining and sharing this information with us as a board. This is something that we can use as we talk with legislators to inform our conversations with our district leaders as we allocate resources. Universities, I'm not sure. I think this can also help inform practices on the university level as we look and move forward, that there's things that we can work towards to secure our funding for improving our technology and our implementation of cybersecurity practices and all of those things. So thanks, Heather, for coming. Really appreciate it. Corey, thank you for your work on this. I know that this is one of your main projects that you work on, and to get 100% of all public schools to be involved in this, hats off to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And my contact information is in the slide deck. If anybody has any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out.
Well, thank you so much. Patty's given a clap, so I think all of us are. So thank you very much.
Glad. Take care.
So we'll move on to the action items on our agenda. Does anyone have any questions about the minutes from our last board meeting?
I've read through the minutes. I'd make a motion to approve.
Board member Lovelace has a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Okay, a second from board member Hess. We'll take a vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes? Vote aye. Aye. Any nays? That appears to be unanimous. We'll move on to board member recognition, and this is an action item, and we've had kind of a few people leave our board. Dr. Wagner has accepted a position at ISU as the president. Chandra Johnson and Tad have also moved on to other opportunities, and we have a letter that we would like to present to the board for each of those individuals. And we've, Dr. Hunter has arranged for people to read those letters, and then we'll accept a motion to accept those for Director Jenkins to distribute to each of those individuals. I'll start with Dr. Wagner. Whereas Dr. Robert Wagner, the chair of the board of the Utah Education and Telehealth Network, is resigning his position effective January 26, 2024. And whereas since 2007, Dr. Wagner has served the Utah State University community, most recently as executive vice president, providing a broad leadership role in managing the day-to-day operations of USU. whereas Dr. Wagner has the qualities of a good leader, intelligent, considerate, inclusive, and visionary, holding himself and others accountable to act on the organizational goals that have been set. And whereas his leadership put USU on the forefront of innovation and effective use of technology in the educational experience, many will miss his collaborative style and abilities. Whereas during his time as chair of the board of UETN, he has provided a steady and thoughtful leadership in bringing the board together to provide purpose and vision for UETN. And whereas he helped to advance UETN to become one of the premier state IT networks in the country. And whereas Dr. Wagner led the organization through thoughtful evaluation of internal and external services and goals, demonstrated principles and consensus of good governance, and helped advance UETN goals of equitable access to technology. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the Utah Education and Telehealth Network Board, do hereby express our gratitude and deep appreciation to Dr. Robert Wagner for all he has contributed to the success and future of Utah Education and Telehealth Network. We also wish him the best as he embarks on his new adventure as president of Idaho State University. The board meeting at the Eccles Broadcast Center in Salt Lake City, Utah, this day, February 9th, 2024. And this will be signed by our CEO, Executive Director, Spencer Jenkins. We will now have, let's see here. So Kurt Lovelace will read Tad's, and Brittany Cummins will read Chandra's, and we'll go in that order. Thank you.
Whereas Tad Morley, Executive Director of Network Development and Telehealth for the University of Utah Healthcare, has committed an impressive decade of service on the UETN board, passionately advocating for the interests of telehealth, health departments, clinics, and hospitals throughout the state of Utah. And whereas his expertise and vast knowledge in healthcare have been a guiding force helping shape strategic decisions and initiatives on the UETN board, and whereas he has played a pivotal role in advancing connectivity and services for a diverse spectrum that spans health departments, clinics, hospitals, public schools, and libraries to enrich the landscape of healthcare and education in our great state. And whereas through his dedicated service, he has left an indelible mark and positively impacted millions of healthcare patrons, along with students, educators, faculty, staff, patients, clinicians, and healthcare providers, creating a lasting impact throughout our communities. Therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the Utah Education and Telehealth Network Board, do hereby extend our heartfelt gratitude and best wishes to Tad Morley with this certificate of appreciation dated February 9th of 2024. So, thank you, Tad.
Hey. Whereas Chandra Johnson, State Librarian and Division Director of the Utah State Library, has dedicated 3 years of service on the UETN board, ardently representing the interests of libraries and librarians across the state of Utah. And whereas her unwavering leadership and collaborative efforts have played a pivotal role in elevating connectivity and online services to libraries, public schools, colleges, universities, clinics, health departments, and hospitals throughout our great state. And whereas through her dedicated service, she has positively impacted millions of librarians and library patients, as well as students, educators, faculty, staff, patients, clinicians, and healthcare providers alike. Therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the Utah Education and Telehealth Network Board, do hereby extend our heartfelt gratitude and best wishes to Chandra Johnson with this certificate of appreciation dated February 9th, 2024.
Thank you for reading those, each of you, and thank you to those three that are leaving our board. They've been instrumental in the service that we provide as a board and the direction of UETN. Does anyone have any questions regarding those letters?
Well done.
I would entertain a motion to accept these letters for Director Spencer Jenkins to distribute and to get to those individuals.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I think Steve was first on that. We'll accept Steve as making the motion. Jared, do you want a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The voting is unanimous. And we'll have Director Jenkins deliver those letters and express our heartfelt thanks to those individuals. So thank you for the work for putting those letters together for us to be able to deliver and to give them recognition. We do have Eric Hawley with us today. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Eric has been named to be the new board member for USHE, I believe, right? And we look forward to hearing and working with you.
Well, hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. First of all, I love this organization. I've been involved with UEN since I was like 12. Maybe not that long, but this has been a part of my professional and personal work for many years. Family has a long legacy in education. My father was principal at Cedar City High School and then South Sevier High School in Monroe. My mom taught English at Red Hills Middle School there in Richfield. I crimped my first Ethernet cable down in Blanding in the admin building, which is now just represented by a rock and a plaque. It's making me feel old. I grew up I came to Utah State University fresh out of high school and never left. But in that time, had the opportunity to work with extension and continuing education and travel around this great state, pulling Ethernet cable in the ceilings of hundreds of buildings and every county on the planet, and gotten to know so many great people and just have such a love for the educational mission in this state and the combination of technology. Tech and education are in my DNA, and nobody will ever squeeze it out of me. I love it so much. So I am pleased to be here. I'm currently Chief Information Officer at Utah State University and teach a little bit, which is great. That reminds me what the real business of education is. Turns out it's not servers and wires. Who knew? But those things are critically important to delivering and making it happen. So it's the absolute perfect combination. I know many here in the Zoom room already, and I look forward to getting to know others of you who I've not had the opportunity to already work with closely. I'll never be able to feel the shoes of Robert Wagner, so I'll bring my own, and we'll have fun together as we move forward the great work that is UETN. So thank you.
Eric, could I ask you a question?
Oh, yes, please.
Do your parents still live in the South Sevier area? Or the Richfield area?
Yes, they live just right across the street from the cemetery in Richfield.
Okay, because I live in Central Valley and I know lots of Hollies, and I was just like, I wonder if you're
my grandparents were Central Valley there in Richfield. Okay. Yeah, I was there from age 7 until I went to Utah State for school. So
awesome.
Yep, that's the spot.
Well, great. Well, welcome to the board, Eric. We look forward to we look forward to working with you. Does anyone else have any questions they would like to pose to Eric?
Or to vote me off the island?
We're not going to vote you off the island.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, welcome, Eric. We look forward to learning more about you and spending time and getting to know you and your expertise. So our next item on the agenda is to consider the calendar dates for our meeting schedules. I would Are there any questions from any of the members of the board concerning the meeting schedule? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept the meeting schedule.
Motion to accept the meeting schedule.
Second.
Oh, I'm not sure who made the motion.
Greg.
Oh, it was Greg? Okay, I didn't see it. I didn't, because it usually pops up and I was looking for who had made it. So Greg made the motion and Kurt seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that item has been voted on unanimously. We'll look forward to those calendar invites coming out and doing those meetings. Now I gotta. All right, we are now on the bylaws and policies. Do any board members have any questions concerning the recommendation for approving the UETN bylaws and guidance for the advisory councils and or the guidelines for the committee formation of the finance committees and policy? And what that would do, if I understand right, is Director Jenkins would work with Patty Norman to look at names or listen to input. If you want to serve on a committee, you could let Spencer know, and Spencer and Patty would work on forming those committees to come back next month with. Is that correctly stated?
Yeah, and if I can just add a couple of things. So this formalizes a large part of what Elwood Downing did for us the latter half of last year. On the bylaws side, most of that is clarifying language that sort of updates and streamlines procedures, especially related to vacancies, proxy voting, and then the chair and vice chair elections. And then it also aligns terms in the bylaws. So relatively administrative, I would call it. The other piece is that it updates the advisory council language for the two statutorily established advisory councils. And then the third document lays out those two new committees, the finance and policy committees. And I would say if any of you are interested, I think a couple have expressed that interest, feel free to shoot me a note or Patty a note, and hopefully by the next meeting we'll have some names to present.
Do we have any questions from any of the board members?
Good.
I would entertain a motion to accept the recommendations if someone would look at those recommendations and make a motion.
To accept the recommendations. To accept the recommendations.
Was that Patty?
I think that was Patty.
Okay.
I'll second those.
And a second by Steve Hess.
Right.
And all in favor, say aye. Or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The voting is unanimous to accept those recommendations to move forward. We'll look forward to our next board meeting, looking at those, what you come back with and taking actions on those items. Let's see, we now, I believe, are to the executive director report, right?
Yep.
All right, we would like to turn the time over to Director Jenkins to give us his report.
Okay, thank you. And Eric, welcome. Thank you for accepting the appointment, and hopefully we don't drive you too crazy on this board, but thanks for taking some time. And thank you all. I know this is a very busy time of year, and so thanks for taking a few minutes. I'll try to keep my report brief. I did want to note a milestone from the latter part of last year. I don't think we touched on this, but our network did hit a new high water mark in November. Roughly 32 petabytes we passed through that month. Doing the rough math, it's about 1.3, 1.4 gigs per second during that month. So there's a lot moving across our pipes, but as you can see, every year that growth continues, and we anticipate that growth will continue. Our network team, or technical services more broadly speaking, is going to be extremely busy this year. As you know, we talked about the ARPA funding we've received last fall, and as that goes out the door, that'll go towards a number of upgrades across the entire network. So it's going to be a very, very busy year for our group. I also excited to announce our replacement for our associate director for the Utah Telehealth Network. You'll remember Matt McCullough left us last fall. He's now at the Utah Hospital Association, working in the rural areas. We're excited to announce the hire of Sarah Bauman. Sarah comes from largely the nonprofit background. She worked in a couple of environmental areas, but also she worked at Valley Mental Health, and she'll be starting here on Monday. It'll be fun to introduce you to her. She's got a lot coming at her with the telehealth network and maintaining the relationships we have outdoor the healthcare industry. We'll be turning to people like Kurt and others to help plug her into some things, but we're excited to have her join us next week. So hopefully by the next board meeting, you'll all have a chance to meet her. I did want to highlight something more on the employee side. We've just embarked on a partnership with VOA, or Volunteers of America. They run a number of services here in the Valley. In particular, there's a teen shelter that we've partnered with to provide food and meals for. We just started that this last month. Kind of a fun opportunity, and it's neat to see some fun impact, but I thought it'd be fun just to highlight that. Both an opportunity for some of us to get together in a hybrid world in which we work, but also to do some neat things for especially young people who are on the margins. It's really been a neat opportunity to get acquainted with what VOA does out in the community for us. And then I just wanted to touch on where we are legislatively. This is our legislative budget request. Our appropriations subcommittee, those of you that are paying attention, they just wrapped up their work this week. Our infrastructure and general government committee, they did prioritize a number of our items. You'll recall the two real big ticket items for our request are related to cybersecurity, which is a $6.9 million ongoing funding request. And then you'll see under number 3, the software for Adobe that was funded. It's been funded one time from various sources for K-12 for 4 years, I believe. And this is a request for both public and higher ed. The committee did get a little bit creative on the software side of things. Right here are the two main things from what they adopted in terms of priorities pertaining to UETN. The text that says number 90, that's intent language that the committee adopted and will go to executive approach for approval. They identified some savings within the committee and has directed it towards 2 specific areas for the Utah's online library, which is up for renewal this year. That's a 10-year contract that had a little bit of an increase. And then it also says for creative content, media development, production, and editing suite, that's essentially the Adobe software for K-12 specifically. You'll know it has kind of a mix of funds. Part of it is one time, part of it is ongoing. We'll figure out exactly how that will shake out. That obviously doesn't cover the full amount we're requesting also for higher ed. So that's some continued work we're going to be doing these coming couple of weeks. You'll also note that Scribble, the other software piece that we requested, is not part of that intent language. I've talked to the folks representing Scribble on the Hill, and we're going to hopefully do some work here over the next week as well to try and see if there's some funding support for that. The graph below, that's the ongoing state funding request out of the Infrastructure and General Government Committee. Probably different than the Public Ed Committee. Most of what IGG deals with is one-time funding because it's roads and buildings primarily. So this list tends to be a little bit shorter. but it was prioritized, or the cybersecurity request was prioritized, which kind of gives us that ability to move into the next phase of working with legislative leadership and others on executive appropriations to try and see if that will get funded on an ongoing basis. So that's where we're at. We'll see where it goes next week as the handoff formally happens on Monday and Tuesday, and we'll work in earnest, getting with leadership to see where things shake out. A big variable, of course, is where the revenues come in at. There's also discussions of another tax cut, which will impact the overall budget numbers. And then, of course, what I call the sort of big rocks of the budget, which all of you in public ed know what those big rocks tend to be. And so we'll be watching closely. We hope to work closely with you all as well, because I know this is one of many, many priorities out in education. And then just a final note of thanks. It's, as usual, it's always an interesting session, but those of you working both in public and higher ed, boy, what an extraordinary amount of different things going on this session. And my hat's off to all of you. There's a lot of work being done to focus on what the true needs for education are. So thank you for all you're doing. But that's my report briefly. If you happen to take questions or criticisms, whatever's needed.
Are there any questions that any of the board has that they would like to direct to Director Jenkins?
Yes, what is DGO?
That's the Department of Government Operations. That's where DTS lives, as a division within DGO. So those are the privacy officer, I believe, I'm not sure if that's in DTS. The customer experience program, that is, well, you can see that, that's all with the CIO.
Okay.
Spencer, this is Jared. I wonder if, has there been some look at the, what's it called, the non-discrimination bill, with respect to any effects or impact it may have on content?
That's a great question. So right now, because we're part of the University of Utah and they help us from our legal and policy standpoint, we're obviously going to be deferring pretty heavily to them and to exactly how we approach the implications of that legislation. But we are cognizant of what its impact might be. As you know, from the broadcast side with public broadcasting, there are some requirements related to diversity and equity. And we want to make sure we don't get in conflict with those requirements while still adhering to what state law is going to require. But that it's a great question, Jared, and I can't say we have a full answer yet, but something we're going to be looking at very closely.
Yeah, it looks like something we'll all be working through together. So
yeah.
I'm not seeing any other hands. Are there other questions?
Yeah, Spencer, the bill on privacy, I forgot the number, has quite a bit to, Eric and I have had a chance to look at it. It's pretty comprehensive. Is there any anything that you've had to say about that with the person that's sponsoring that bill?
Yeah, Senator Harper, I think it was SB 98.
Yeah, Senate Bill 98.
There was concern about the domain requirements for K-12. There's language in there that it's not, I would say, the best drafted language, but we did get confirmation and clarification, both from the CIO and from Senator Harper, that the intent is to not require K-12 to use EDUCAUSE's domains unless they become available. The other piece was the rulemaking authority that will be given to the Cyber Commission. UETN is a member of that commission, and our intent is to be an active participant as they consider those rules. That is something we'll be watching very closely, because it does. We certainly don't want, with the intent of the Cyber Commission being a coordinating point for cybersecurity, we also don't want them to unduly exercise any mandating authority over either UETN or LEAs, for that matter, in our partnership or in our relationship we have as the network providers to our partners. So definitely something we're watching closely, but I think because we're on the Cyber Commission, it gives us an active voice to make sure those administrative rules don't get too far afield.
I can add a little bit too from the K-12 side. The Utah State Superintendents Association, the Utah School Boards Association, and the Business Administrators Association, they took an oppose to the bill initially when it first came out, and we put in points that we wanted to see changed in working with Director Jenkins. Those items were taken to Senator Harper, and he amended his bill in subsequent substitutes, incorporating all of the requests that we had taken to him. Lexi Cunningham took those items to him. Many of us emailed him, and he was very responsive in working with us in subsequent, amendments to his bill that we last week took a support because of the changes that he had made that we had recommended. So I know that it's a support on our end now on the K-12 side. I'm not sure if, higher ed has taken a position, but that's where we're at on the K-12 side.
Yeah, we submitted our comments yesterday, and also any kind of fiscal note that might be attached to the bill, and made some suggestions, and they were kind of gathered by USHE and taken forward. So we're hopeful that they'll make some changes as well. It's a pretty comprehensive bill and would have quite a price tag in the way that it was. And it ought to be reconciled with the bill that was passed last year on cybersecurity. There were some things that I think they made sure that the definition of, for instance, PII was the same in both bills, and a few other things. I think it would be, we're in support of the bill. It just thinks there's a little bit of fine tuning that needs to happen there.
Thanks for collecting all that, Steve, passing that along.
Thank you.
Steve, did higher ed attach a fiscal note to the bill?
We did, yeah. Well, it's kind of difficult to attach a fiscal note, but yeah, we sent one in from the University of Utah. But it's a little hard to determine what the fiscal note is, depending on how the bill actually ends up itself.
Yeah.
Because it goes almost every item that would be a problem in cybersecurity. It used to be at 500 or less. Now it's everything. And to try to track everything would be, the bill might fall under its own weight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We made those suggestions, and hopefully they'll respond and make some modifications. But it is a bill I think that we need.
Yeah, I know that he's met with several of us. If you wanted to go meet with him, he's very open to, he's one of the legislators that will really sit down and he'll really try to understand any concerns that you're bringing. And so I would recommend maybe arranging a meeting with him and going over those items personally with him. He responded to everything in our meetings that we had. So I really appreciate you bringing this forward. Are you Dr. Hess? I'm not sure how I should. Dr. Hess. So I don't know everybody's titles or anything, so I want to make sure I'm saying correct things. But you've brought some very important items forward, so thank you.
Oh, it's an important bill, and it's one we look at carefully because the impact is going to be significant. We need to, you need in cybersecurity to take some initial steps, but you need to focus on where the risk is. If you try to cover everything in the playing field, it will just fall under its own weight. And that's the key that we tried to point out. And Eric, I saw your comments. Thank you very much for sending those along. But we submitted those to the to USHE, and I think it's Jeff Johnson, and he's going to take them forward. And we'll see if they make the changes.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve.
Are there any other questions for Director Jenkins from his report? I'm not seeing any hands or anyone speaking, so we'll move forward to our advisory council reports, and we have Mars that will do the telehealth advisory, and we'll turn the time over to you.
Mars on?
Is Mars on?
I don't think he's on.
Okay. Do we have anybody representing the telehealth side that could do the report?
I could just,
Okay, we'll
no,
let
it
you
was,
do just a little bit.
it was a very brief meeting.
Okay.
We talked primarily about some of the, there's a telehealth parity bill that's out that's actually quite important for healthcare. I don't know if, Kurt, if you're following that at all, but it's certainly going to be an impact on telehealth, and it ensures the parity that was more common during COVID.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of policy discussion. And then, of course, we introduced Sarah Bauman from that's going to be joining us on Monday. So, Kurt, I don't know if you have anything to add on from the legislative side of things. If
I think when I was up last week with the UHA, you know, we obviously are watching some of the healthcare bills, and I met with some of the legislative representatives last Wednesday, and on that parity bill, I think it's a good bill. We're just watching that, and I think it shouldn't have any major impact on healthcare as long as that goes through and keeps everything equal for everybody. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that report. Rick, I hope it's okay if I jump in before you. And I've been on the Education Advisory Council for a couple of years, and so I've still been attending those meetings. But I just wanted to give a shout out to, you know, Dr. Hunter and Rick, and for the way they run that meeting. And then also, Laura, you arranged a meeting with the library folks based off some questions I had about SORA and implementation of policy and getting ahead, because we want to make sure that the books, when we open something up, that we're not going to get hit by parents about the type of books and those types of things. And we had a really good meeting. What was it? This week has just run into, was it Tuesday? Or was it Wednesday? I can't remember. But we had a meeting, and they took all the questions I had. They're going to form a policy. They're going to form different things. And we had a really good learning experience. And so hats off to you, Laura, for setting that up so that we could, you know, be on the same page policy wise, and, you know, making sure that the materials that we're getting out to our kids, you know, meet state the state statute and policy. So I really appreciated that conversation. But we'll turn the time over to you, Rick, to give a report on the Education Council.
Thank you, Jason. We met just over a week ago. Had I think a really good meeting. Thanks again to Laura and her team for they always put together a really good agenda and give us good items to discuss. And that we had a little bit of an overview of what's going on at the legislative session from Spencer, and appreciate all the efforts that he's putting in behalf of advocating for UEN in all areas up there. It's a lot of work, and I just wanted to give a shout out to him and his team for all they're doing to make sure that UEN is well represented and the information is getting there. We did have a presentation from from Marie at the State Library. She's been leading the efforts on the library RFP. This is the Utah Online Library, the research library that is currently comprised of products from, I think, Gale and EBSCO and things like that. That is a 10-year contract that is coming due, and so they have been working really for over a year now to be able to get new contracts in place for the online library, and it's getting close to being finished. There potentially are going to be some changes, maybe even some, fairly significant changes in the offerings in that, but they're wading through the offers, meeting with getting back and getting clarification from vendors in that, and we should have that done here in the next few. I would assume, Laura, maybe if I don't know if there's anything you would like to add to that discussion. Or did she drop off? Looks like she might have dropped off. And but that one I'm sure we'll be coming back to the board in a future meeting this year, as probably in your April meeting with the final contracts and where we're at with that one. We also had a discussion on wireless testing, and we had a little bit of a little presentation, particularly from what their Beaver district is doing. And I don't see Superintendent Long with us today, but this is just as you may be aware, Beaver district has been taking some education spectrum that they held and was able to and Jim, you might want to jump in and just tell a little bit about what they're doing, but they've been able to bring it up. So, I think it's a 5G private network, so that all their students have access all the time. If there's anything you would like to add to that, Jim.
Certainly, Rick. I just say that Beaver District has been a leader in this wireless project. They have acquired some EBS spectrum. We've been doing some work with them, improving out different types of radios, and we've seen some really interesting things because although the lower priced radio manufacturers have similar propagation in how the radios are seen and how the equipment can communicate with them, we were finding out that the throughput on the higher priced radios is much better, over double the capacity. So the district has taken the information that we've given them, and they've gone to their board to get permission to move forward and do that implementation. We're looking at an LTE implementation right now, but we're trying to figure out, how to easily move them to 5G when that becomes available. And they did a real nice job, and we appreciated the opportunity to present that at the AC. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you to you and your team for all the support you do. I think it's one of the things that was sort of indicative of a lot of our meeting, and that is all of the great support that UEN offers in so many different fronts, and so it's much appreciated. We also had a brief overview of just some of the very preliminary numbers of the technology inventory that you were able to dive into here today in much greater detail on that. But that was pretty much our meeting, and also the annual report, the community report that UEN has to puts out each year has just been completed, and I think that's in your agenda as well. It's a great document just to see the reach that UEN has. So thanks to all, and that's our report.
Thanks, Rick. Are there any questions from the board that Rick could answer? I'm not seeing any hands or hearing anything. So, thank you for your report, Rick, and for chairing that committee and council. And it was a great discussion last week. So we just want to invite you to review the 2023 local content and service report to the community. This is required of CPB funded public media organizations. This annual year-end review publication includes highlights and impact data that will be informative to the board members. If you want print copies, you can reach out to UETN and request that. Are there any questions on that annual report to the community? Okay. Productions and events. This is just an informational item. Let's see, there are 4 reports there. The following are shared as information items. The latest video productions are highlighted on UETN's UEN's YouTube channel and on UETN TV. The weekly broadcast schedule for all 4 of UETN's TV channels highlight the local and national productions. The popular and timely UETN Homeroom podcast continues. This is in its 6th season, so that's pretty incredible to have, that longitudinality going forward and everything. And then we just want to also announce that the 2024 USET UELMA conference will happen on March 19th through the 20th at the Salt Palace Convention Center. And more than 2,000 people are anticipated to attend.
And Jason, if I could just jump in there, that in conjunction with that is a TCC, what has typically been their winter retreat, but they're doing it in conjunction at the same location, which is kind of a neat cross-pollination, if you will, to throw out a cliche, but so.
Yeah, we've usually done Cold Boot down in Bryce Canyon, and so that's going to be really nice to join with UELMA and participate that way. Are there any other items that the board would like to discuss or talk about? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
At some point in time, I'd love to see on the weekly broadcast schedule and UE Homeroom podcast what the numbers are for how many participate in that, if that's possible.
That would be a good point too. Yep.
And we'll get to work on that.
Okay.
And Jason, as a concluding remark, we did this by email, but just to formally recognize Chair Norman, that was as with Chair Wagner's departure, he did appoint Patty per the bylaws as our chair. So we appreciate Patty's willingness to step in.
And a big thank you to Jason for stepping in as well. It's a big day at the legislature. Every day from now on till it ends is a big day. And so I apologize for being on and off today. So
have fun.
And thank you.
Yes.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Yeah. Oh.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time. Ben and Jason, thanks for stepping in for Christina. Appreciate y'all being here.
Thanks so much. See you next time.